When the ghost asks, "What now? What the hell do you want?" Hi everyone, I have a ghost story to share, and it is a special type of ghost stories that you may enjoy. This is a long one, but every bit of details is important. Somewhere in the early 2010s, I was serving as a medical doctor at a small district hospital in Kelantan, northern Malaysia, and we did almost everything from surgery to forensic post-mortem examination. We were serving a small community, and we often had the free time during on-calls to exchange stories. I do not enjoy horror stories, and I do not appreciate the jump scares of horror films, movies in general, and I definitely do not enjoy the violence in those films. But I enjoy the moments of realization, the aha moment of the sixth sense, and the others films that start with a mystery and end up with a horrifying realization. Musical notes dum dum da. And this is where this story fits in. It started with an autopsy in Kelantan, on the east coast of Malaysia near Thailand, and in it ended in Penang, on the west coast of Malaysia, at least from my perspective. It was Wednesday when a car stopped at our emergency department, accidents, and emergency A&E. Then a man came down yelling frantically. "Help!" He collapsed on the side of the road near my farm. The other man at the back seat was already dead on arrival, so naturally, this would trigger a police investigation. Urugh, it was going to be one of those days. So I picked up the phone to call the police and also to call our East Coast pathologist, who is a very important man, and he is kinda like a rock star around here. But he is a very meticulous man, sometimes too meticulous. I knew that I was about to spend the next 6 hours standing still, while assisting him in the autopsy, while wearing layers of plastics that are covered with blood, and with police officers looking over our shoulders and breathing over our necks. I often felt that the police officers really wanted to join in the fun, by putting their hands inside the victim, and by throwing internal body parts at each other like a beach ball, but that would be against protocol. 6 hours standing, 2 more days to finish the report. Cause of death, natural causes. Finally came the weekend. I was free. My girlfriend at the time worked in Penang, some 300 km, 186 miles away, but we were trying to make the long-distance relationship work with me driving to Penang every weekend. The problem was, after a few weeks of this, we would run out of stories and topics to talk about, and we would start looking into our phones and into our wallets for more stories to talk about next. Penang was a new place for both of us, and she herself did not know what to do and where to go in Penang. But that Saturday, her phone rang. She exchanged few words, and I can tell that the other person on the line was in distress, crying. After the call, she hesitated before she told me that a friend from school days is being harassed by a ghost. Of her dead husband, musical notes dum dum da. The more she told me about her, the more interested I was, so she started showing me on her phone her friend Manny and her late husband Ayip during the happy days before he committed suicide a year later. BTW, I am not using real names. Manny and Ayip are common pet names around here. And since our date was not going well, I offered to drive her to her friend's place, because she didn't have her own transport back then. And sure enough, we were there at Manny's place few minutes later. She was a mess. From the first moment I laid my eyes on Manny, I knew she was not faking nor pretending. Most liars tell their lies looking straight into your eyes and wondering whether you have caught them in their lies and whether you are doubting their claims. She didn't. She looked down, avoided eye contact, and she appeared genuinely defeated. Her affect was consistent, which led me to believe her. It was obvious that she was crying for hours to no end, and she really did not expect us to drop by at her house soon after that call. She lived with her mother in a very modest flat apartment, and after moments of exchanging some pleasantries, she started telling me her life story, and I will try my best to keep it brief. She said, 12 years ago I found myself finishing school. I did not get the grades that would get me anywhere, and my mom could not afford to send me anywhere for further studies. My savior came in a Kelantanese man, from Kelantan where I u/em 2000 live, who came with a neighbor asking my hand in marriage. He was old as my late father, but he was a successful businessman who traveled all around the world. He was a very proud and a very egoistic man. He always had a story of a successful deal or had a new business opportunity to share. He was a very big man and a very tall man, and he also had a birthmark on his forehead in the shape of an S. He always joked that the S stood for Superman. I'm sorry, we are not Harry Potter fans. I only found out about Harry Potter several years later. Now, SHSHSHSHSHSH, her story is about to go tragic. With my immediate future getting darker every day, I married him and I moved to Johor Bahru with my husband, south of the country near Singapore, and about 700 km or 430 miles away. 5 years into the marriage, and things were only getting worse. In the beginning, he would come back home happy after finishing deals with huge commissions, bringing back lavish gifts of expensive brands. But later, he became more private about his businesses, and his gifts were getting smaller, cheaper, and more scarce. When I asked about work, he would ask me why I haven't given him a child yet. In our culture, it is always the woman's fault for not getting pregnant, so I had subjected myself to all kind of medical tests and examinations, of which they all came back negative. The doctors could not find anything wrong with me. Every time I asked him to check himself with a doctor, he would recommend another gynecologist because apparently the last doctor was an inexperienced child and as dumb as duck. My life was getting further and further from being happy, and I used to hide in the bathroom crying and blaming myself for my bad luck, until one day I opened the door, and he apparently was using the bathroom to cry and to blame himself for his bad luck as well. But then he pretended that it never happened, and I couldn't care less if he did. This all came to a halt about 6 months ago. 2 police officers came knocking on my door. Apparently my husband's car had skidded off the road, flew over a cliff and fell into a fast-moving river in Jerick. The police could not find the body, but they told me that it was unlikely that anyone would have survived the fall from that height. The police suspected suicide, but I firmly refused to believe that. However, days later, I found a letter that sounded like a suicide note. The goodbye letter was both kind and apologetic. He asks forgiveness for not providing the life he promised for me. He tells me that his businesses were in a downward spiral for over a year. He tells me about his business partner who had cheated him and had stolen millions from him, putting the entire business into bankruptcy. And to make things worse, a doctor had diagnosed him with an advanced prostatic cancer, which is why we couldn't have children. He tells me that he has a land in Calanton, again where I live, and a life insurance at some company. And he mentions the contact number of his lawyer, who should be able to guide me through the inheritance. And finally, he tells me to get rid of this letter immediately and never tell anyone about it. And then he bids his final goodbye for the very last time. But things did not go as well as planned. The business partner sued me for unpaid debts and for the stolen money. His brother refused to hand over the land since it was his inheritance from his father, and my lawyer had failed to locate that life insurance that my husband claims it exists. We were buried in debts, and the phone did not stop ringing on the hook. My mother and I became frequent at the lawyer's office hopping for any news, but the lawyer kept asking us for any paper, letter, or magazine left in the house that gave any clue of what my husband was talking about. I became like a crazy person. I looked at every hiding spot in the house. I went into the crawl space in the roof, and I searched at every corner of the front garden, but I could not find anything useful. But eventually, I had to sell the house in Johor Bahru, and I moved back to Penang with my mom ever since. 6 months later, a friend of a friend told me about this doctor, a doctor of spirituality and the paranormal. IU/EM 2000 interrupted her. Oh, you mean a witch doctor or a shaman? No, he is a real doctor with an honorary PhD from the University of Varna, that's in Bulgaria, specialized in communications with the spirits, specifically with the dead. He is well known in the area, and he has an office in a highly respected commercial district on the island. A number of people were already lining up and waiting for his consult in the waiting room, and they all insisted that he was the real deal. The doctor was young, and he wore a suit like a lawyer. His office looked exactly like a lawyer's office, filled with papers, post-it notes, books on large shelves, large file cabinets, and honorary degrees on the walls. There were no bones nor skulls anywhere. There were no snakes nor lizards in a jar. There were no dried leaves hanging on the wall, and there were no magic diagrams to be found. It just felt like a typical lawyer's office, opened for business, including the anemic receptionist secretary outside, a must-have at every lawyer's office. He basically told me that he has the ability to communicate with the dead using any object that the deceased once favored. And once he initiated contact through him, I was free to ask my late husband for anything in exchange for Rm 400 per session. I was desperate, and I had already paid the Rm 400 at the counter outside. It was late in the afternoon, and the sun was setting behind the tall buildings of Georgetown. He sat at his desk, held my husband's favorite watch in both hands, closed his eyes, and he mumbled few words summoning my husband. Moments later, the doctor turned red, started sweating, and he started making violent head movements before he snaps out from his trance yelling in fear. It's the devil, the devil. He jumps from his seat, and he cowers into the wall in fear. We asked him what was going on, but he insisted for us to leave his office immediately. He yelled to the anemic receptionist to return the RM400 and to dismiss all customers away. He was completely freaked out. How little did we know, that day was the beginning of a whole new chapter in a long book of torture. I was in the bathroom crying so my mom wouldn't hear me when I saw my dead husband's face in the bathroom mirror. He was angry and he was shouting without any sound. I shouted hysterically, left the bathroom, and I jumped into my mom's arms crying for over an hour. My mom covered all the mirrors in the house, and she even accompanied me into the bathroom whenever I needed to relieve myself. I lived in complete fear for 2 days until I decided to return to the doctor's office because he is the only person who understands these things. The doctor was more anxious to see us because he too was receiving visits from my late husband, and Ayip apparently was more angry and was more violent with him. He told us that he no longer wants our RM400, but he felt that he had gone too far into a place where no man should venture into, and he strongly felt that he broke some sort of a seal that no human should ever touch. He was very keen to go back and fix the mistake that was done, absolutely free of charge. He told us that communicating with the dead is like chasing a flock of chickens in a farm. Yes, it can be tiring and difficult to grab the right chicken among many, but generally the experience is positive and pleasant. But when he attempted to summon my husband's spirit, it felt like pulling a mad cow that was completely out of control. And that mad cow had my husband's angry face yelling on top of his lungs. Even worse, this mad cow is chasing away all the chickens in the farm, disrupting business, which is why the doctor was unable to conduct his business for 3 days in a row. The doctor had never experienced anything like it before, and when he saw the S mark on his forehead, he just assumed that my husband was Satan, Shaitan himself. We asked him what Ayip was yelling about, and apparently my husband had said, "Who the hell are you, where am I, and what is this place?" So now the doctor believes that my husband is a wandering, angry, and very confused ghost that will roam the earth exerting revenge on everyone involved. "We need to put him at rest quickly," he told us in a firm voice, trying to sound confident. So he sat at his desk again, held the watch with both hands and recited few prayers before going into trance all over again. And moments later, we heard his voice change as my husband's spirit was taking over. "What now? What the hell do you want? Ayip, is this really you? Stupid woman, why Manny had to ruin everything? Why are you angry at me for? I only wanted to ask you about some missing paperwork. Thai women are so beautiful, and they are very obedient to their husbands." "What?" Suddenly the doctor yelled in agony before snapping back into himself. We attempted few sessions afterwards, but my husband clearly did not want to talk to any of us anymore. That last session was yesterday, and now I can feel my husband at every turn and at every corner of my eyes. He is in my dreams, and sometimes he appears right in front of me. I am going crazy, and I do not know what else I can do. After hearing Manny's story, my girlfriend and I, U/EM2000, remained there for about 30 minutes, and right before I left, I pointed at a picture in a photo album. "Is this your brother-in-law? I mean your husband's brother?" Yes, he is." Minutes later, I was in the car driving quietly. My girlfriend asked me what I thought about the whole thing. I did not answer her, but I picked up my mobile phone and I called my hospital. "Come, it's me. I want to talk to the MA on-call who is in charge of the mortuary, the autopsy room. Please have him contact my mobile phone number ASAP. Thank you." I hung up the phone and she wondered what was that all about, and this time I answered her. "Remember I told you about that autopsy case who died about 2-3 days ago? The man was big and tall with a long beard and a moustache, and he had a birthmark in the shape of an S on his forehead. I believe that man was Manny's husband, Ayip. Died 3 days ago. Ayip does not have a beard or a moustache. Didn't you just hear me mentioning the S mark on his forehead? Men can easily grow facial hair after few weeks, unlike birthmarks on a forehead," I replied in frustration. "But Ayip died several months ago." 50-plus years old John Doe was found dead by a local farmer on the side of the road. He was carrying a false Thai passport and a false Malaysian ID, so both the Malaysian and the Thai authorities were unable to find out his true identity nor his true intentions in Kelantan. An autopsy was ordered by the police to rule out foul play, of which I was the assisting medical examiner. The body was in pristine condition, and the expert pathologist could not find any good plausible cause of death. Yes, we managed to rule out foul play, but we really did not know what caused his death other than old age. I laughed a bit before I continued. When I first saw his picture on your phone, I was 50% sure that it was him, but when I saw his brother's picture, I am more than 100% sure. The brother was the same farmer who brought the dead body to the A&E that day. He must have panicked when his brother suddenly died right in front of him. I still do not understand. I want you to imagine a proud, clever man who was once rich and successful, now deep in debt and probably involved in a theft or a huge scam. Imagine if someone told him that he could get forged documents, a false ID and a false passport, and that he could escape all his legal troubles with all the stolen money by faking his own death and by assuming someone else's identity. Then maybe go north and marry that beautiful, obedient Thai girl. But before his plan comes into fruition, something was summoning him into an office 300 km away in Penang, someone who is powerful enough to pull someone's soul out of its living body. Permanently. Holy SHSH. This is why he was initially confused, then later really pissed off. I know I would be. I do not know what those people teach at Varna, Bulgaria, but they really hit over the mark in this one. At any rate, this is still an open investigation in Kelantan. I just need to contact the police officers who were present during the autopsy and point the investigation towards the brother before he gets away. But what about Manny? The brother is complicit to the whole scheme, so I hope that the police would be able to recover back some of the stolen money and property for your friend's sake. As for the wandering pissed-off ghost, Ayip, we can only hope that the witch doctor with an honorary degree from the University of Varna would be able to put him at rest in time.